So let's go to the next one. Oh, I'm sorry. We dreamt, we learned, then you have to do it. You can't just think about it. Get out and do it. Then after you're doing it, you need to build. So build whatever you're doing. If you're, I knew a guy who cut out these tall cats. Looked like a big cat with his tail coming up, and they were about 3 feet high. And he painted them black. They had a pedestal, and he put a hoop in the back, and he went door to door and sold them. They were for you could put a coat on it, but really they were for like an umbrella or something, an umbrella stand. Keep your umbrella in at your front door. Now, people never used them. They weren't used for umbrellas. They just bought them. I don't know. They liked the guy. They liked what it looked like. He cut them out by hand, glued them, screwed them together, sprayed them black or whatever, and took them to people and sold them door to door. And he did really well. But you don't want to stop there. You want to say, well, what else can I do? Can I do dogs? Ask people what they want. Make custom ones. Start doing that. Get to where you can find somebody to make them for you, for cheaper, and you can get more and maybe sell them to some stores, some mom and pop stores, churches, houses of worship, private schools, any kind of little thing like that. If that's what you want to do. And then you repeat. So you find those things you like to do, and you kind of do that. Dream, learn, do, build, and repeat. Now, there is the story of the fisherman. The guy was at a resort, and he was a multimillionaire, and he looked outside, and he saw this dude in the morning, be about 10 o'clock. The guy would be walking out, getting his boat, he'd go out, and the guy came back later for lunch around 1 o'clock, and he saw the guy coming in and unloading his fish, and then he saw him leave. He saw that in a couple days, so he went down there one morning, or caught him on the way back after lunch and said, "How you doing?" He said, "I noticed you go out about 10 o'clock and stay out for about 3 hours and come back and you take your fish away." He said, "But I never see you go back out." The guy says, "Oh, no, I get up, sleep and get some good sleep. I get up around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I just wake myself up. My family's there. I take some time to play with my little daughter and spend some time with my wife and do some things around the house. And then I come out and fish till about 1 o'clock. I come in, I take my fish to the market and sell it, and I go home, I take a nap. I get back up, do some things around the house. I maybe go out with my wife. My other children are older, so I might take them to play basketball or something. And then we'll all have a little family get together. And, I love to read and listen to music, and so I do that at afternoon. And the guy says, "Well, how do you make enough money to live?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I have a nice little house. It's not that big, but we love it, and we live by this lake, so we can take care of the water, and we play. The kids love it. They go to school. I'm putting away something for my retirement, and I've got a fund set up for them to go to school." And the guy's like, he said, and I take vacations 4 or 5 times a year. When the fish aren't biting, I close up and we go on vacation. He said, "So I'm not a wealthy person, but I'm having a great time, and I like it." And the guy said, "Well, gee, I'm a manufacturing specialist." He said, "Wow, these people out here for a couple dollars a day, they'll go catch all the fish you want, and you could be coming out here early in the morning, and you could have 5 or 6 people working, and you'd have to work hard and stay at it and go build your market and sell your fish and buy some new boats." He said it would take a lot of hours and a lot of time. He said, "But in 20, 25 years, you could retire." And the guy said, "So I wouldn't be able to play with my kids and all that. I'd have to go." He said, "Well, no, you'd have to go in and work. You have to put in a lot of work and make a lot of money, and then you can retire." And the guy said, "Well, what would you do? What would I do when I retire?" And the guy's like, "Well, you can do whatever you want to. You could play with your grandkids. You could go listen to music. You could read. You could go fish. You could go out in the lake, whatever." And the guy said, "Well, I appreciate it." He said, "But I'm doing that now." He said, "I'm going to do that for the rest of my life." And the guy just kind of looked at him and couldn't understand because he's on another level, and he's trying to help this guy out, trying to help the guy make money. Now, it's kind of a corny little story, but if you think about it, it's the truth. If you're doing something you love, it's definitely worth it. You might not make all the money that you would make doing something else, but sometimes you don't need all that. Sometimes making a lot of money has a big cost to it. So, all right, we're going to get on here. That's my little story. Whose fault is it anyway, and who do you blame? And you've heard people, if people are blaming other people, there's a problem. And the common denominator is the person blaming everybody, because it's not your fault bad things happen to you. And it's not your fault that other people do bad things to you. And it's not your fault that people stop you from doing the things that you want to do or should do or deserve to do. It's like, go back to TV, nothing wrong with TV, but if you watch so much of it instead of doing the things you need to do, don't worry about not watching TV. Worry about doing the things you're supposed to do. So instead of worrying that this person's stopping you from doing that, go look at the roadblock you're putting in for yourself. And we'll do a whole thing about self-roadblocks, but I've seen people do that, put roadblocks in front of them, and we'll talk about that a little more. We got a couple here to go. So don't blame others, and don't say, well, you know, a lot of people say you're where you're supposed to be based on what you've done. But that's not true, because people get injured and people get bad things done to them. But within your situation, try to go out and do the good, positive things. Do the best you can, and you'll definitely feel a lot better for it and get a lot farther. And we've talked about asking the why. You have to ask the why with everything, and we'll talk about this next thing, and that's your patterns of behavior. So here's the pattern of behavior. Somebody goes and gets a job or starts doing something and gets really good at it, and it goes along for a while. And then there's something happens. It's like a little switch, or I call it, if you ever looked at a wall you're trying to climb and it's smooth, you can't go anywhere. But then there's this little indentation, and you can just get a little lever in there, and you start picking at it and pulling it out and putting your lever and squeezing it and prying it, and chunks come out, and bigger chunks and bigger chunks, and then finally the whole wall can come down. So it's your patterns of behavior. Person has a great job at a great restaurant and works up to manager, and then the managers come in and say, I want you to start doing this and cleaning up the bathroom at night before you go. And the person gets so upset, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to clean up this bathroom. I do everything else. I do yada, yada, yada. I do this. I've done this for years, and you're going to make me, I'm not doing that. And they get all incensed, and there's a big argument. And they end up saying, if you want somebody else, you just get somebody else to do that, and they leave. Now, I'm not saying it's their fault, but what's the result of that? They don't have a job. If you want to leave a job, get yourself situated. Get your house in order. Do the things you need to do to get your other job. Don't let your emotions and your pattern of behavior rule what you're doing. Because you're right, it's probably not, it's probably is humiliating to clean those bathrooms. It probably is beneath you. It probably is not right of what they're doing. But you can't change it by quitting. All you're going to do is hurt yourself. And I say try this. And listen, I've done all that many times. For a whole week, I don't want you to react with emotion. Be calm and cool, and don't react with emotion. If you can't react except getting emotional, you just say, you know what, I guess you're right, and walk away. And see how that goes. And then the next week, now I wouldn't do this on stuff, I don't amp this up to risk something that's really important to you. But go out in life. There was a guy that went out and he started asking for just whatever outrageous thing he could think of. And he noticed that half the time people wouldn't give it to him, but half the time they would. He'd go into an ice cream store and say, hey, can I get a full thing of ice cream and not pay anything? Most of the time they would say no, but about half the time they'd say yes. And if they'd say no, then he'd say, well, can I get just a little bit in that? Or can I get a full scoop with all the sprinkles and pay for half, and usually almost all of them would negotiate with him, and he was just nice, calm, and cool and smiley about it. A lot of times people got angry, but he didn't let it get to him. It just goes to show you that the way you react, your emotions can really rule what results you get. So that's your patterns of behavior. And we're going to talk about another thing, and that is your tools. And this is getting a little metaphysical because we're going to talk about a ship of Theseus. A tool, let's say you had a hammer, or let's say an axe, and you had a pedigree. You knew that this axe was owned by Abraham Lincoln, and he chopped down trees like a maniac. You know, if you used that axe, you would probably feel just so empowered and so strong, and you chop them trees, and man, you're always feeling good about that axe. Boom, boom, boom. What if you found out later that that was a lie? That wasn't Abraham Lincoln's axe. That was just an old axe some guy bought and pawned it off as Lincoln's. A lot of people they'd be just depressed. They would never use that axe again. They'd throw it away. Now, I know this sounds stupid, but it's not. Everything they had, all their positivity would just be blown away. All because of something, somebody said about it. So your tools, it doesn't matter how many times they've not worked for you or worked for you. You need to keep trying. You need to keep using those tools. And it goes back to, what is it? A ship of Theseus. So Theseus is, we believe, might have been a historical figure. He's definitely a mythical figure. And he had a ship, and a bunch of people did some great things with it. Had 30 oars. And then after he used the ship, it set at dock at this place, and this king wanted to keep it. So anytime a plank would get rotten, because this is wooden ship back in the prehistory days, you're always replacing stuff. He would pull off the old planks, put the new planks. When an oar would break, he would put a new one. They did that until that ship was totally rebuilt. There was not one piece of that ship that was left from the original. And the question is it still the ship of Theseus? So some people say yes, some people say no. So you have to think about that, but I'll think about this. Let's say you did that, and you have that ship over 20 years, everything's been replaced. Which has happened to a ship. It's called the Alvin. It's a deep sea diver. I believe every piece of that has been replaced. We'll come back to that. Now you have your ship, Theseus ship, that's all replaced, and you've kept all the old planks. Now let's say you could put those old planks, nails, every timbers through a process to rejuvenate them, or at least make them stable, and put that ship back together. So now you have two ships. You have the one that's everything's been replaced, and you have all the replacement parts put back together, which is the ship of Theseus. So let's say you're you, and we can now replace every physical part of our bodies. We can replace brain matter. We can actually grow a brain and transfer our thoughts to that, and memories, and all new bodies. We can replace these parts. Maybe little nano robots will go in and replace stuff or whatever. And you have all of your consciousness. Are you still you, or is the old body new? That's what you have to think about. What something is not just what it's made of. It's the combination, it's the essence. So if you, us, all we have is what? We only have memories. Now we can say hopes and dreams, and we can project and think and dream up stuff, but it's not real, and it's not us. We only have our memories. So why am I talking about all this crazy stuff? Because if I went to those two ships, and I could jump in either one and do exactly the same thing. So does it matter if it's real or not? And we talked about the Alvin. The Alvin is a deep sea ship. You can go and look at it. It's called the Alvin. People have used it for 40 years, 30 years, however old it is. It's been totally replaced, but it's still the Alvin. Now, if they take all the other stuff and put it together, is it an Alvin? It's really about your use. So let's go back to your tools and to you. It's how you use your tools. What do you do with that axe? What do you do with that guitar? What do you do with your skills? What do you do with your techniques? Do you put them to their best? Are your emotions ruling what you do? Are you getting what you want and deserve? I don't know, but you should go give it a try. So I know this has been a little bit crazy at the end, but listen, it's important. So we need to frequently revisit our why. We need to look at our direction and alter it as you need to. And I'm not telling anyone to do these crazy things, like getting out of a relationship or quitting a job or just changing everything. Do it in a very confident, a very thoughtful, a very steady process that takes some time. Don't ever give up something until you got something else. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That means if you have one in your hand that you've caught, and there's two over there, you don't throw that one away to go get those two. You might want to put a net over those two, trap them, then if you don't like this one, you can toss it. That's what that means. People have all these, it's just a bad apple. The saying, and it's based on a fact, is one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. So in other words, if you have a barrel of apples and there's a bad one in there and you leave it, all the apples are bad. They will all go bad. That's that. Now, I'm not saying that's used correctly with things, but people always say that, somebody's not doing what they're supposed to. Oh, it's just a bad apple. Well, yeah, and it's spoiling everything we've got. I've been in a situation of working with a group of people, and that's the case. So, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Don't make your changes so quick and crazy and thoughtless. Get in touch with your why. Make sure you're doing things that both feed you and you feed that. Because something you just love to do and you don't really care about making money, that might just be a hobby. And there are people I've met people, and there's two camps in a lot of ways. Some people need a hobby. They shouldn't be doing their hobby. I've known people that, were drummers or woodworkers or farmers, gardeners, and they just loved it, but they didn't want it to be work. Because if it was work, it would be distasteful. They would have to do it. Other people, oh my gosh, I come in and play all day, or, oh, I get to just take this thing and put it there. I pick this one up and put it there. I turn this screw over and over again. They're thinking about all kind of cool things or listening to music or bebopping around and getting involved with everybody. They do that for 30 years, they have a great life. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not happy with where you are, if you're restless, that's when you need to make some changes. But you need to do it in a thoughtful, prescribed manner. Even super creative people that, think they can't be tied down and all, you have a system, you have a route, a path. If a super conscientious, boxed in person that does everything wrote by the book, and a super artsy person that's just jumping around, which really don't exist. I'm an artsy person and I'm not like that. I've seen people like that in all walks of life and people not like that. But if you have to go from one city to another, both of you are going to take some route. Somehow you're going to get there. And you don't have to pattern out every step, but you should at least have some direction, because you'll never get there without direction. So that's our thing. I made it 34 minutes. I was trying for 30 minutes, but this video is a little bit shorter because I had some technical difficulties. I always do. But I want to thank you folks for tuning in. to Quiz the Music Man, and these are questions I get asked all the time. I'm actually going to go back and do one on each of these things: whining or winning, working to gain interest. I'll do a lot on, if you want to do one on the ship of Theseus, we will. There are actually some Navy ships that this has happened to, so think about that. Think about if you're replaced. Are you still you? We're just our memories, folks. That's it. You know, when you put your arms around somebody and whatever the relationship, if it's just a little friendly hug or if it's a person in your life that's important, that might be it. So, live life to the fullest. You're just in the moment. Remember the past, prepare for the future, but enjoy and live in the present. And with that, we will see you guys next week. This is Tony Underwood. Tony Underwood Music. You can find my stuff everywhere. Listen to it on Spotify. I've got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. I've got a website. I've got Instagram. I've got Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok is coming. So this is on Spotify and Apple and all that good stuff too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.